Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for YLAI Entrepreneurs Scaling Up an Entrepreneurial Journey. This three-part virtual speaker series is designed to empower emerging and established entrepreneurs throughout the Western Hemisphere, especially alumni and members of the Young Leaders of the Americas Initiative and the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs. We hope you will gain practical knowledge, tools, and strategies to address major entrepreneurial challenges, from integrating artificial intelligence and securing funding to building global partnerships and mentoring relationships. Today, we will be talking about AI-powered business, driving innovation, efficiency, and growth. Before we begin, there's a few housekeeping items. The session will be in English, but we have simultaneous interpretation, so you can select your preferred language, either Spanish or Portuguese or English, from the Zoom interpretation options. To ask a question at any point, please drop it in the Q&A box or in the chat, and we will try to leave time near the end to address as many as we can. My name is Jonathan Puerta, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. I'm a YLAI alumni, entrepreneur, and former CEO and co-founder of two social organizations in Colombia, Design Your Nation and Task Me, both aim at helping youth to develop their entrepreneurial and employability skills. After completing a master's degree in innovation and technology policy with a focus on AI, I started working alongside organizations such as the OECD, the European Commission, and the Inter-American Development Bank on AI-related topics as a consultant, researcher, and policy advisor. So that's what brings me here. And more recently, I became a research fellow at Portolands Institute, a Washington, D.C.-based think tank, where I study the impacts of AI on economy and society. So I'm really glad to be here and with two amazing speakers who will be sharing with us their insights on entrepreneurship, AI, innovation, and growth. First, I'm pleased to introduce John Normark. He is the co-founder and CEO of Iterate.ai, an AI innovation platform designed to help large organizations rapidly build, scale, and deploy AI-powered applications. He co-founded eBags.com, which reached over $100 million in annual revenue and was acquired by Samsonite. He has advised and invested in numerous successful ventures, including Runa.com, which was acquired by Staples, and Virtual Tourist, which was acquired by TripAdvisor. He's also an LP in a mezzanine investment firm with stakes in startups such as Uber and Spotify. I'm also here with Lucia Torres. She's an Argentinian entrepreneur and co-founder of GoBetween, a translation company where she has successfully integrated AI to streamline operations, boost efficiency, and drive innovation while preserving the human touch. She's a graduate of the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs in Rosario, Argentina, and she has leveraged the program by strategically applying AI to enhance workflows and deliver smarter solutions. With deep expertise in English and a background as a professional translator, she combines linguistic excellence with forward-thinking technology adoption. Passionate about empowering others to embrace innovation, Lucia's journey illustrates how AI can be a powerful ally for entrepreneurs across industries. So, John, Lucia, welcome, and thank you for joining us. And without further ado, I would like to start giving the floor to John, who will share with us his insights on AI entrepreneurship and how to build a successful startup.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thanks to everyone for letting me be here today. I want to start by also thanking the U.S. State Department for inviting me to speak as an entrepreneur who's built a few companies and from my home in Colorado in the middle of America. And thanks to all of you for spending your precious hour or hour and a half with me. My company builds and operates private AI for big enterprise level organizations. This presentation is going to explain my opinion on why your mindset is more important than money and why your mentality is more important than smarts. It's why Mark Twain said, the best swordsman in the world doesn't fear the second best swordsman in the world. No, the person for him to be afraid of is the ignorant antagonist who has never held a sword in his hand before. He doesn't do the thing he ought to do, and so the expert isn't prepared for him. He does the thing he ought not do, and often it catches the expert by surprise and ends him on the spot. None of the companies pictured on the right are big tech companies. They're all startups, inventors who made a name for themselves by inventing in the generative AI space. Many became backed by big tech because generative AI training requires so much capital. But in the end, startups are America's innovation engine. Startups also create most of the job growth in America. They also create the most influential patents. AI patents by startups are 84% more likely to be among the top 5% of most cited patents compared to those from established companies or academic institutions. The impact of startups also increases over time, unlike incumbents or universities. Startups are orthogonal thinkers. Netflix, Airbnb, Amazon, Uber, Tesla, Atlassian, Shopify, SpaceX, none of those originated from within the industry that they ultimately changed, and all started tiny. My company, Iterate AI, holds 7 important AI patents, and we have 8 more pending now. We also think of ourselves as a full stack AI company. That means we invented the infrastructure layer for Intel and Qualcomm, at the language model layer for companies like Elo, Toast, Elf Beauty, and Square, and at the application layer for many other firms where non-technical people interact with our AI. This is my co-founder and Iterate's chief AI officer, Brian Sathyanathan. He immigrated to the United States from Sri Lanka in his early 20s. He built one of our inventions that I'm going to show you right now. He wanted to be able to write enterprise-grade code while away from his desk. In his words, I want to be able to go to 4 meetings and come back 6 hours later and the code is written. It's a bit like Windsurf and Cursor, but it can't be a co-pilot because it can't have any babysitting. It has to be agentic AI and useful to a big enterprise organization like the ones that Iterate serves. This has resulted in a product we call Agent One, which one of my partners and a vice president at Iterate, Magnus Tagstrom, will show you right now.
So if you see my screen now, this is actually a plugin into Visual Studio. And I created, based on John's background, a little prompt just to try it out. See here, I'm reading my prompt. So I'm starting an e-commerce business to sell travel gear online. Help me build an application with best practice functionality to view products, add to basket, and checkout. I also want to see product recommendations like frequently asked, frequently bought together. I would like to be able to do a future integration to Stripe to create a sub for that. Make it look simple and professional. For demo purposes, add some products and skip any login requirements. Keep track of the development in a plan file. Please create an HTML documentation that includes architecture and mermaids. So I'll kick this off. And what you'll see is that Agent One will start to plan the development project here. And it's acting, and you'll see it's building the plan file here in my Visual Studio. And it will continue to build now for maybe 10 minutes or something. And then we'll come back and see where we're at later on in John's presentation. But we thought this was a good way to bring real things to life. So back to you, John. I'll stop sharing.
And John, sorry to interrupt. We just want to make sure everybody has joined the translation room and selected their language. I don't know, Jonathan or others, if you could repeat that in Portuguese and Spanish, just so people make sure they're in the right room.
Yes, I can do it. I can do it in Spanish. Entonces, para aquellos en español, si quieren escuchar la conferencia en español, recuerden unirse al canal en español para escuchar la traducción simultánea, si así lo prefieren. Please, John, carry on.
Great. Magnus, thanks for showing that. So Agent One, we believe, is the first coding assistant for massive enterprise-grade code bases. We're going to give everyone on this call access to Agent One for free after the presentation. It supports GPT-5. It also includes Anthropic, Amazon Bedrock, and private models that we built at Iterate internally. It can run securely behind firewalls. It also has its own intelligent memory, which is required for agentic AI, and it preserves up to 2 million tokens, or roughly 2 million words of relevant context across sessions. So this is the prompt. that Magnus just put in. But now, as we let that run, and we'll see what it produces by the end of this meeting, I'm going to talk about entrepreneurship. I've built companies in 2 different ways. Over a period of more than 20 years, eBags raised over $30 million from top-tier venture capitalists. We incubated 6PM out of eBags, then sold it to Zappos, which is now owned by Amazon. Being owned partially by a venture capitalist put 10-year time constraints on the company, and an exit was required due to commitments VCs make for their investors. On the other end of the spectrum is Iterate AI, which we bootstrapped, meaning we paid our bills largely by doing consulting work. Then in our free time, we built software. That allowed my co-founder and me, plus our employees, to retain meaningful ownership and control over the company's destiny. Now there's no 10-year hammer held over our head. Recently, after finding our footing and a clear path to big growth, we raised $7 million and we'll do 15 million more in the upcoming months. eBags was eventually acquired for $105 million, and Iterate is valued at roughly the same amount right now. If you do a startup, do it for the love of building, not for money. Money is a byproduct of building from your heart, from passion, and for the love of building. There are no gifts in this startup world. This is a picture of investments made by Silicon Valley's Plug and Play. It's a fund. 275 startup logos are shown on this picture. 29 of them exited for more than $100 million. So that's about 10% of the companies shown. 198 or 72% were exited for under $20 million. It's possible there were many complete failures too, and they aren't even shown on this picture. Often about 30 to 40% of tech startups that are funded go completely bankrupt. I show this slide because it's a reminder to be thoughtful, and you should build from your heart, not for the money. This is a picture I drew in early 1998 to show designers what I wanted my first startup, eBags, to look like. This is a messy start. And LinkedIn, Amazon, they're all the same way. They're all messy starts. I'll tell you about eBags now. eBags sold luggage on the web. I actually tried to start eBags while I was working as a director of marketing in 1997 at Samsonite, a billion-dollar luggage company. In 1997, I had a 45-minute private conversation with Samsonite's CEO. We were at dinner, and I tried to get him to let me build a website to sell Samsonite luggage online, really to liquidate old luggage. That CEO of a billion-dollar company told me, "I have email, John, and I guarantee you, no one will ever buy a bag from an email." That comment caused me to quit my job. Because many people don't have a vision of the future, and because all startups start messy, entrepreneurs get a ton of negative feedback. When I quit my job at Samsonite to start eBags in 1998, I think 99% of people told me it wouldn't work. I found some co-founders eventually, and we printed 200 business plans to help us raise money. We ran out of all 200 before anyone invested a dime in our company. As we tried to raise money, we heard every reason eBags wouldn't work. You need to be cheaper than department stores. People need to touch luggage before they buy it. You can't sell handbags or fashion products from a computer screen. Louis Vuitton's owner, LVMH, said to me as we tried to raise money from them, "You can't survive without raising $100 million. They had invested $80 million in a company called Boo.com, and after I visited LVMH to raise money, they told me that Boo would crush eBags. I also heard many, many times that dropship business models would never work. No one would ever type their credit card into an unknown website. No one will ever write a review of a piece of boring luggage." Well, we were one of the only retailers to beat the dot bomb back then, when billions of dollars blew up in 2000 and 2001. eToys lost $200 million. RX.com lost $350 million. Webvan lost $1.2 billion. And that company, Boo.com, blew up too, along with LVMH's $80 million, and they lost $200 million overall. And this taught me one thing: not to fear people with money. Brains beats money most of the time, and common sense beats money too. I also decided that an idea is only an idea when no one agrees with you. Every single criticism of eBags, the critiques made by very smart people, were proven wrong. 20% of our bags were sold via email. We sold 29 billion bags before being acquired. 25% of buyers wrote reviews of luggage over the first 8 years. 1,000 brands were drop shipped from our supplier-owned warehouses from America and all over Europe. I also came to believe that culture is everything. Culture is the totality of socially transmitted behavior patterns and beliefs. It's the predominating attitudes and behavior that characterize the functioning of a group or an organization. It can be constructive or destructive. We had a famous investor that said that e-bags had a pixie dust culture. It may be best described by this letter. When we accepted an investment from Mitsubishi Japan, we were required to host one of their employees for a year. This is June, dressed in a Superman suit on Halloween in our office. On the night before he left us, after working with us for a year, we threw him a going away party. He had to return to Japan. After the party, late in the night, he wrote this email to our company. Thank you very much for the wonderful party last night. I could not sleep last night due to excitement by thinking of many, many good memories here. Yesterday was the second most impressed day of my life. Number 1 is my wedding day in 1986. Number 2 is yesterday and the day of my first son's birth. I have to leave Denver on February 1st, Tuesday, and we'll be able to stay at eBags until February 1st in the afternoon. I will go around the office and say goodbye to all. Last thing, John and Elliot accepted to keep my photo on the About eBags section of our website, and I get to keep my eBags email address, june@ebags.com, after my return to Japan. Thank you again, and EI eBags. EI eBags was one of the many slogans we created to motivate eBaggers to aim in a fun way for each quarter's goals. So to me, that's a story of entrepreneurship. It's the battles you fight, proving the naysayers wrong, and most importantly, it's the people you meet along the way. In a nutshell, entrepreneurship is full of the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. You can think about entrepreneurs as people with skills and mindsets or mentalities. Look at the top right quadrant of this chart. If you have a high skill and the right mindset, you're most likely to succeed. You'll have grit, vision, and execution power. Now look at the top left part of this graph. If you don't have the skills, but you love to learn and you're a fighter, you have a fighting chance. The real problems arise when your mindset is off. When you're a non-starter, a person who thinks too much, a perfectionist, a quitter, or a person who's focused on the negatives, then that's a problem. One more thing though that's not mentioned in this start that I'd like to bring up is that I think people who win build great teams. I'm going to focus on the mindset now. Science actually backs the claim that founders live in an amplified feedback loop, one that's measurable. When compared with any other profession, entrepreneurs experience greater emotional volatility. That volatility is fuel for innovation, the highest of highs, and a reason for burnout, the lowest of lows. Entrepreneurs put all their money on the line, they put their houses on the line, and everything because of that becomes super personal. It's not just a job. I've had some real wins that I'm proud of over the years. eBags won Website of the Year for retail for our whole nation 5 out of 8 years in the early 2000s. I was CEO of the Year in Colorado. Ernst & Young named me the Entrepreneur of the Year for the Rocky Mountain region. But these all took many years to accomplish. CEO of the Year happened to me after 28 years of being a CEO. Becoming a top voice on LinkedIn took 14 years. This is why you need to build from the heart and build for the love of building. Building a business usually takes a decade or more. I've also had many lows. $300,000 was stolen from one of my companies and $1 million from another one. The $1 million time resulted in the guy receiving a 10-year prison sentence. I was fired 3 times from eBags. Maybe my worst low was having to lay off 25% of my team and the loss of at least 5 co-founders through a similar situation. I've interacted with way too many lawyers. Again, building takes time. I spent 10 years at Samsonite, a big company. That experience was invaluable. They taught me how to operate with precision. I quit there to start eBags. In time, it too became a machine that operated with every bit as much precision as Samsonite. After 10 years, I became chairman, then started Iterate AI, which is now 11 years old. What most people never see is the scary starts and the messy middle, though. Startups are not smooth sailing. After 10 years at eBags, I was fired. Actually, in a sense, I got fired and rehired 3 times. Upon the first firing, I got in a huge legal battle that cost me $380,000. But in the end, after tons of consternation and legal gyrations, I was reappointed as chairman. 18 months before eBags was acquired, the company's value dropped to maybe $20 million. We adjusted. Changes were made on the board. We hired a few new people. And then, like magic, we sold the company for $105 million. So in 18 months, we went from 20 million to $105 million. Today, Iterate could be headed to become a $1 billion company, or it could go to zero. The AI market is extremely uncertain, mostly because it's moving so fast. The point is that startups are not straight lines. After I exited eBags, I invested in roughly 25 startups. Most were companies started by friends of mine, me just trying to help them. One did great, it IPO'd. I also invested in 2 entrepreneur-led funds. Those funds invested in startups like Uber, Spotify, and Toast. They did great. I've had 10 investments that got 5 times returns or surpassed $100 million valuations. And then 9 other investments either lost money or did so-so. And a few remain unknown. Some startups actually become the walking dead, meaning they're living but can't achieve an exit. So the investors never get their money back. The point of this is that startups are a crapshoot. Typically about 75% fail to return money to investors after the investors put money into them. I've also participated in a few accelerators. One was in Ukraine. This picture is of my co-founder, Brian Sathianathan, and me. We met in Ukraine while sitting on a board in this Eastern European startup accelerator over 2 years. When you get this presentation deck, you can click on this slide's orange tile. It will take you to an entrepreneurial DNA test. It's a gift from the Founder Institute. The assessment is based on research that determines whether you have a founder's mindset. It's the longest and most comprehensive study on the social science of entrepreneurship. More than 200,000 people have taken the survey, so give it a try if you'd like. I did a lot of volunteer work for Founder Institute. It operates in over 200 cities and more than 100 countries. I started the chapter in Colorado in 2010. Globally, more than 8,100 entrepreneurs have gone through this structured accelerator program. The Institute's CEO lives in Colorado like me, but it has significant operations in California like my current company. The Founder Institute's graduates have raised over $1.85 billion in total, and they estimate its portfolio is worth about $20 billion. Between Ukraine, the Founder Institute, my 25-odd investments, eBags, and Iterate AI, I've helped more than 100 companies, probably far more than 100, build, and I've built a few, and I've seen a lot. Now I'll walk you through a number of my learnings. They're just my opinions, but I'll call them my truisms. Firstly, the world is flat. When Brian and I worked in Ukraine, this dawned on us. In 1995, when eBags roughly started, it cost $5 million to start a digital startup. By 2014, when Iterate started, the cost had fallen to $5,000. This is because open source software and libraries, the cloud, and tools like that were available to anyone in the world. We saw this happening in Ukraine. Super smart developers who could leverage those low-code resources could start businesses. Those low-cost resources could start businesses. Now we have vibe coding and AI, so you don't even need to be highly technical to start a digital business. You can also reach anyone anywhere. When eBags started, there was no broadband. You had screechy dial-up modems, images that took 25 seconds to load on a screen, credit cards that weren't thought to be secure online. Now, Over 5 billion people are online, and services like TikTok and ChatGPT can get global awareness and usage almost instantaneously. Be sure to just show up also. Showing up lets accidents happen. This means you'll run into people. Random people can be helpful. You never know. When eBag started in 1998, I was flat broke. I spent all my cash on starting the company. My credit card stopped working at Starbucks. I only had enough money to make my house payments for 4 more months, and I was making 0 salary. I didn't think I could afford to fly from Colorado to New York City to attend a trade show, but my co-founders told me I had to go. They said it was my duty as a founder and CEO. So I showed up. At that event, I met 2 people who a month later funded eBags. One was a person from Japan. That led to June, who you already saw. He worked for Mitsubishi and he could barely speak English. The other was a 24-year-old kid who happened to be sitting at lunch with me. I thought I was wasting time sitting next to this young man because I was desperate for money. Turned out he worked for an investment bank. He told his 2 bosses about eBags, and they ended up personally investing $400,000 into our company. This is one reason I take coffees with almost anyone with no expectations. You can see why I believe in luck. You never know. Look at every situation as an opportunity. We were worried about June from Japan spending time in our office, but you know what? We loved him and we loved Mitsubishi. We succeeded partly because we experimented at eBags. One night, a guy named Val Augustino, a 25-year-old engineer, came into my office. We were losing $1 million a month. We could see that we only had a year's worth of runway, and the dot bomb of 2000, the year 2000, was rearing its ugly head. Val said to me that night, "John, I think I know how to save eBags." And I said, "Val, tell me, I'm all ears." He said, "What if we could run an A/B split test like snail mail advertisers did back then?" I asked, "You think we could do that?" He said, "Yeah, I think we could write the software that could do it." I said, "How long would it take, Val?" He said, "About 3 weeks, he thought." I said, "Go home and don't come back to work until it's done." He wrote the code, and eBags became a testing machine. We tested thousands of things: colors of buttons, layouts of navigation, and the number of images shown on every page. We also took bets on which execution would win company-wide: the red add to cart button or the green one, 5 product images or 6. What I learned was that I was only right only about half the time. And I learned the same thing was true for everyone else. That turned our company into a culture of one that accepted everyone's ideas. We tested everything we could. As a result, our conversion rate increased tenfold over 6 years. This chart shows how our marketing team improved the return on investment 13-fold over 2 years as we were trying to make the company profitable. Experimenting worked. I love this quote: "Maybe it won't work out. Maybe seeing if it does will be the best adventure ever." Experimenting is important because change is constant these days. What works today may not work as well tomorrow. Because of this, I like things like tiny boards of directors. Boards, especially in small companies, can slow things down and be debilitating. Today, you need to be nimble to handle the rapidly changing market conditions. Just look at generative AI. This chart shows how AI has caught up to and even past humans in many human skills like reading, image recognition, and handwriting. Since around 2015, AI performance has climbed quickly, and by 2023, it is matching or beating humans in almost every area shown on this chart. Those areas include reading comprehension, image recognition, language understanding, handwriting recognition, speech recognition, and predictive reasoning. Over the past 6 years, AI's capacity to autonomously complete tasks has doubled approximately every 7 months. As of early 2025, advanced models like Claude 3.7 Sonnet can handle tasks that would take a human roughly 1 hour to do, achieving that with 50% reliability. The early models could only handle very brief tasks on a scale of seconds with reliable performance. Now, some AI capabilities are doubling every 3 months. That means they get 8 times better in a year. 1 becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8 in a year. If the current exponential trend continues, AI might soon be able to handle week or even month-long tasks on its own. AI training is highly experimental. Researchers run thousands of trials, tweaking architectures, data curation, and hyperparameters, often learning from more from empirical feedback than theory. Breakthroughs like transformers, RLHF, and long context attention all emerged through this cycle of trial and error experimentation. And experimentation for all entrepreneurs is crucial for finding product market fit. Ultimately, you have to live longer than the learning curve. This means you need to watch your cash and try lots of things. To experiment well, you need great people. Entrepreneurial people are willing to experiment. As Warren Buffett said, you will move in the direction of the people who you associate with. It's important that you associate with people that are better than yourself. So hire well, be very careful when picking a co-founder, like you're careful when picking a spouse. You'll be with your partner for a long time. Pick employees and partners who are different from you too, though. Being complementary to each other, having complementary skills is valuable. You don't want the same. Differences and diversity are valuable. Startups often succeed because they come from outside the industry and people come with outside ideas. This creates orthogonal thinking. And remember, building a business is a we game. It's all about your team, the culture you build. At the same time, bet on yourself. In my case, I know I'll work hard, I'll be persistent, and I'll be honest. So I like betting on me, but I also always listen to everyone else. So yes, it's a we game and a me game all at the same time. But today, more than ever, it's also a brain game. I say this because AI is rewriting the rules. You don't need capital for everything. This wasn't true when starting a business meant buying inventory, airplanes, or buildings, or even when eBags started out. Wealthy people were required because you needed capital to build. You needed it to build your business. But today's barrier to entry has shifted. In a digital business today, the barrier to entry has shifted from capital to brains. The digital winds are at our back. Open source libraries exist, open source AI, low data storage costs, and acceptance of remote work, a web that reaches globally, and agentic development tools. They're all available to us. And you don't have to worry if you don't have a Harvard degree. Those are good, but common sense goes a long way. Remember the LVMH and Boo.com story. Which brings me to mind over money. We had a saying at eBags, too much money makes you stupid. Why? Because money can make you lazy. It stops the invention process. Constraints lead to invention. Just look at DeepSeek over in China. If you do raise money, remember that you'll run into dozens and dozens of skeptics along the way. You'll hear every reason why your business is bad, and you'll get many, many no's. And if you raise money, know that you're not just an entrepreneur or business developer. You need to be a boardroom architect. Building your board with the right people is critical. The boardroom can make your business better or worse. That's a long topic for another day. Also, never think that big is the best. A McKinsey partner became an M&A leader for Liberty Media and Liberty Global, the owner of F1, Expedia, QVC, Stars, and other businesses, once told me that he would love to own a business that Liberty would never buy. It's the most comfortable life, the small business that does a small amount of revenue but creates a great quality of life. You know, that's good, and in fact, it's beautiful. And for most people, for 99% of people, that's the best business. So here are some product truisms now that we're through the mindset. To be an entrepreneur is to be different, but be that person who never wielded a sword, like Mark Twain described. That's the only way you're ever going to be noticed. You've got to be different. At eBags, we did that. We were a pioneer of product ratings and reviews. We built A/B testing 7 years before the concept showed up in Wikipedia. That led to super efficient operations. At Iterate, we're doing it with runtime advancements, KV cache inventions, private AI, and small language model. This is leading to high-value partnerships, which pave the way to customers. Big picture, Iterate AI helps businesses launch secure and enterprise-grade AI. We do it fast. We own 2 platforms for building agentic AI. We create AI solutions that interoperate with low-cost cameras. We also do intelligent document processing for banks and insurance companies at scale. We are very versatile. Here's an AI social media we developed for a highly regarded brand in America. They have 7.8 million Instagram followers and 7 million or more on TikTok. We built AI agents to monitor Instagram, X, and TikTok, where each of the brand's posts can receive thousands of responses. This example got 37,000 likes in 20 hours. This brand is extremely customer friendly, and it wants to reply to every single fan at scale with contextual on-brand language. To achieve that, we trained 8 different language models, refined, quantized, and pruned them to find the one that could listen and speak fluently in the brand's unique brand voice.
Hi, John. Sorry to interrupt. We're just getting
Yeah.
requests for you to slow down a bit for the translation because everyone's really wanting to hear all the things that you're saying. Thank you.
I am so sorry. Okay, so look at the responses on this page. They're not conventional. They're filled with emojis, extra letters, and dramatic punctuation. Is that better? The
Yes,
audience
thank
for this, thank you. Okay. The audience for this brand is 13 to 20-year-old girls who speak with hearts, kisses, starry eyes, and playful spelling. Yes is spelled often with like 4 S's and many exclamation marks. And the model, this language model, perfectly mirrors that. This dashboard is something we designed to keep a human in the loop and in control. When a response is given to the brand or a direct message is sent to the brand from a person on Instagram or TikTok, the AI only handles the 3rd step of the process. It creates a response for the human, but the human who works for the brand gets to review and approve the response. This system helps the brand improve its response rate from 10% to 98% without adding a single employee. We've also become an expert at building AI for resource-constrained devices, handheld devices that work in restaurants, oil fields, and mines. Our nano LLMs don't need access to the cloud GPUs or even electricity to operate. They process all the proprietary information using the AI without web access too. Our engineers created nano language models. These are very, very tiny models, not large ones, but nano ones, by reworking foundation language models. Then all the memory and processing happens on these tiny devices using Qualcomm chips. We're the only company in the world that can do this right now. So now let's go back to where we started. We'll go to Magnus, who's hopefully a lot slower speaker than me, show you what Agent One built while I was doing this presentation. Magnus?
So you see my screen now? So I have a question first to you, John. How much time did it take to create your first e-commerce page, and how much did it cost for eBags?
That's a great question. When eBags started back in 1998, Magnus, we spent $600,000. It was my entire savings and the savings of some of my friends. And it took 9 months to just get a basic operating system up and running. Now, this was the beginning of e-commerce. So what did it take you, Magnus?
Yeah, you remember we started with a prompt, right? And kind of here, I think after 15, 18 minutes, something, it said job complete. This is what I'll show you what we have, but this is kind of the plan that it built out and did. And here you can actually see that we spent $15.59 on Anthropic to build this e-commerce platform. So I'll go into my Google Chrome where I now launched it. So this is then the Travel Gear Pro, and it's easy for us to kind of go back and see. Here is an opportunity to then add stuff to your cart. And see here, now I add a step to the cart. Here, I can go to my checkout, and you can enter the shipping information, payment information. Remember, I put a sub for Stripe for future integration. So, in $16, 18 minutes, we built at least an MVP of eBags.
And Magnus, you use this, like Magnus will do sales presentations with companies and actually build products just like he did right here on the fly, so they can get an MVP right in the meeting, which is something we've never seen done before.
It actually flips how we run projects for our clients as well. So kind of I can take kind of the SOW on what we agreed to build for the client, and then I take it into and build it into a prompt, and I put it into Agent One, and we build the first MVP that we can have as a starting point in our first meeting for then to do more detailed requirement specification. So really a game changer.
So great. So that is Agent One, and we're going to give everyone free access to that. You can use it. We sell it to the enterprise, but for the startups, we let you use it for free. And so it actually hooks into, for the enterprise, it hooks into this a low code platform, which you see in the middle of this screen where the buttons are. That's Interplay, which is deployed in big companies all around the world. And then this is an example of what Interplay looks like. It's one of our 2 platforms. It's a drag and drop low code platform. We call it Interplay. It's both a build platform and a runtime platform all in one. It's built for AI and speeding up software development, but it improves runtime and costs of running AI models by up to between 80 and 95%. And this is one reason companies like Qualcomm and Intel work with Iterate. Agent One is different from other coding platforms because it offers code security and code analysis. It automates unit testing. It draws architecture diagrams automatically. And it's like a software developer, CISO, so a security officer, and an architect all wrapped into one person.
So maybe I can share my screen again, John. I think there was a question. Does it do iPhone and Android? So yes, that we can do that. So here's what you write in. One thing that I didn't share when we talked is also here. We talked about the documentation. So actually, the agent built the full documentation of what was built. So the full system architecture, data flow architecture, the features that were included in the app, the user journeys, the tech stack, the file structure, the file response, the API design, the cart manager, the Stripe stub, and the data flows. And this is something you can take existing code and just ask it to build the architecture for you, and it will kind of document existing code as well.
Yeah, and what's so special about that is we do a lot of work for really big companies, and it can create an architecture diagram in under 15 minutes of a very big system. And normally that would take a human anywhere. I mean, it could take 3 weeks to do it. And so it's quite interesting where this world has gone with AI. So anyway, the other thing that we love about it is that it's really easy to use. Agent One can be used by a wide range of people. On the far right hand of this slide right here, you can see that 2 of our UX designers built 65 applications in 2 weeks. They're trained in Figma, CMS, and HTML. They don't write code like Node.js or Python. And we got all of those live as use cases within that short period of time.
And on Figma, you can actually drop your Figma URL as part of the prompt, and it will build an application based on that Figma design.
That's it. Great point. So that's what the UX designers do. They create the Figma, and then they load it in, write a prompt, and that just builds that front end, back end, all the documentation and everything that Magnus just showed. So that's kind of AI in action. So this is it. We're at the end. Keep moving, expect the unexpected, especially in this world of AI, and keep adjusting. So thank you again to all of you and the U.S. Department of State. Try Agent One, have fun and do the entrepreneurial DNA test, and then look for these resources from the group on this call. Thank you.
Thank you, John. What a great presentation. What an amazing tool and an amazing journey that you have had. This is not the end of the event. But before we move on, I remind you that you can leave the questions in the chat and that you have interpretation options. Just click the three dots in the bottom bar of your Zoom window and select your preferred language. So that being said, I would like to bring to the floor to our other speaker, Lucia. If you can start telling us a little bit about your company, your entrepreneurial journey, and also how have you integrated AI into your business?
Also, John, please take down your screen, please.
Yes, okay. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Lucia Torres. I am the co-founder of Go Between LSP, which is a localization company, English, Spanish, and Portuguese localization company. And even in this AI era, we still focus a lot on human-centered translations. And we try to make a smart use of AI. And then we'll talk about this a bit, how we started, how we can start in our companies, how we normal users, I mean the ones who have not developed AI, how we can make a smart use. And from my company and in my experience, I have tried to do it in this way. We use AI to boost speed for consistency, but the human expertise is what really differentiates us in the translation industry, at least. And we put a lot of focus on accuracy, on cultural relevance, and of course on our own creativity, despite AI. So, well, that's a little bit of me and my company.
Amazing, Lucia. To follow up on that, what are some low-cost ways that you have integrated AI into your business?
Well, as I was saying, when you make a first-time approach with AI, and if someone hasn't yet started, and I'm sure someone hasn't yet, I recommend starting now in 2025, the same way I began in 2022. I mean, and again, I say that I began being a normal user of AI and not an AI developer, because I started using AI with the launch of ChatGPT mainly. So today I would recommend starting with very easy AI tools, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and use it for simple tasks. Use it for writing emails, use it for creating simple content, for analyzing text. Do not get into coding anything. Use what is out there in the market to understand, and focus on learning the basic skills you need to use AI. Learn how to prompt if you yet don't know what prompt is. And especially begin small. Begin with one task at a time. Choose a task or choose a small process, a very low complexity process, and try to go back and forth with AI until you get familiar with it. Once you see that AI has helped you in what you're trying to change, then focus on taking that to a larger scale. And as I was saying, use the pre-trained models. Do not get into trying to develop or implementing anything new until you are familiar with AI. A benefit now is that in comparison to years ago, there is a lot of information. We are over-informed today about how to start with AI. There are lots of videos on YouTube, lots of articles on LinkedIn, so we can read a lot and we can see other people's suggestions and recommendations on how to begin. Despite that, choose a task and choose a tool on your own and experiment. I think that would be the best advice. I mean, follow what others are saying, but also try on your own to see what really fits the purpose of your business.
Great, that's great. I remind everyone that you can select your interpretation options. Para aquellos en español, pueden utilizar la opción de traducción y de interpretación simultánea para que puedan escuchar todo en español. So yeah, moving on, John, of course, Agent One is an amazing tool, but for an entrepreneur that is just starting out, on top of Agent One, what AI tools would you recommend for them?
First, I agree with Lucia on everything she said with, start simple and, just gradually get comfortable with everything. But a couple of the tools that I like, if you're running a small business at Iterate, we use a company called Roam. And I'm guessing that some of you work in remote offices, and it's how we manage our remote office. We can actually see every person as they're working. It's almost like you're in a real office. With Magnus, he lives in Stockholm, actually. So in Sweden, and I can see when he's working, I can see his face, and I can knock on the door. And then when I knock on the door, I can transcribe our conversation. That's done with an AI. And then it keeps a history of our conversations. And I can go back and ask questions of using that AI within that platform to, catch up on what we're going to do. It actually creates to-do lists on the fly. You can replace Zoom with it. Not that I'm telling anyone to replace Zoom, but it will do that. It'll do the same thing with Slack. Anyway, I think that's a great tool for remote work teams. I agree with Lucia too in that you should just experiment with these simple tools out there like ChatGPT, and because they'll just make you a lot more productive. We offer another little service called AI Explored. It's a different URL, aiexplored.ai, and you can even request. You can do it through LinkedIn, but you can request topics. So what we do is we set up an email that goes out every week to every, in some cases, every day, and it'll attract things, or it'll monitor all the news around any topic you want that's related to AI. So it could be AI for healthcare, it could be AI for cancer, it could be AI for footwear, AI for beauty. And so that's a way to just get familiar with all the things happening in AI. So there are about 60 different newsletters right now, but you could always request one on your own. It takes us like 5 minutes to set up. But really, I just think everyone should be using AI now, exploring things. And like Lucia said, LinkedIn talks about it all the time. So you see a lot of good little tools that are popping up in there at any moment in time.
I read a post the other day that was very interesting because it talked about not buying AI as if it was a microwave. It's not something you plug, you turn it on, and it works. I mean, it will take, even though it's useful for saving time, you still have to go back and forth and see where it will help you in your business. So it does take some reading time and learning time, and we still have a long path on this because changes are moving fast.
I see a question. Do you have AI tool for copywriting? I think any of these tools that Claudia or that Lucia mentioned will do it. Like ChatGPT will do it. Claude will do it. Perplexity will do it. The thing to learn about is how to prompt it. Like you can say, a great copywriter was a guy named David Ogilvy from Ogilvy and Mather, an ad agency. You can go into, let's say, ChatGPT and say, here's my topic. I want you to write a short piece of copy for me, but use the tone and personality of David Ogilvy, which will be punchy and salesman. You could say use the tone of Malcolm Gladwell, and it'll write like that person. So all of those will do copywriting. And the only thing is, when you use those tools, know that they're public. And if you're loading stuff like healthcare information into them, I wouldn't do that. Like you should look for private AI to do that. Don't put your finances in there unless you're, ultimately it could leak. It's just, they're public tools that you should put non-sensitive information into.
Great. And talking about that, I will connect that with a question that I see on the Q&A box, and also with a question that we have prepared, and it's about how do we ensure ethical AI use as a small business owner? Perhaps maybe Lucia, you can start, and then we continue with John.
Yes. Well, I think now protecting your data and protecting privacy is essential. You have to be up to date with your local regulations because they are changing also. So follow your local privacy rules, store and process your data in a very secure way so that you can prevent misuse or even leaks, even within your company, and without wanting to do so, it may happen. And then also as a small business owner, you can let your clients or let your customers know when you are using AI. If you feel that's necessary in order to be able to share their data, then do so. I mean, you will prevent many legal problems on that. I mean, if you don't work about ethics at first, you'll end up worrying about the law in the end. So it's better to worry about ethics. And train your teams. If you have a company or if you work with other people, train your teams on ethical use, on what to do and what not to do with public or private AI tools. I think training on that is essential nowadays, and be up to date. I would recommend that. Be up to date on your local regulations or the country where you are aiming to enter.
John, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Well, I just agree. I agree with Lucia. I just spent a year in my state of Colorado on an AI task force where there's a ton of attention being paid to the ethical use of AI and making sure it doesn't make bad decisions in what are considered high-risk situations. Those would be related to healthcare, people getting loans for cars or houses, providing legal advice. Those kind of things are considered high-risk situations. So it is important to make sure you let people know if you're using AI to evaluate them. That'll become more important over time. And I think just staying up to speed on that will be important. So yeah, I'll just second what Lucia said.
Great. We also talk about a little bit about data, which is of course like a necessary input for any AI tool that we use. And perhaps that is an area where most entrepreneurs or small business owners can have some disadvantages, let's say. So in that sense, or in that scenario, what are some simple data strategies to prepare businesses for AI integration? I will start with John at this time. Yeah.
Okay. So data really provides the fuel for AI, and but if you think of AI in a couple buckets, one bucket is the data that goes into what's called the model. The model includes things like algorithms, if it's a deep learning system, it's got all these layers of decision making and analysis in the middle. That's like the neurons in your brain. And there are embeddings and a lot of complicated things. That's the model. Even like when I've been dealing with these legislatures, they tend to only think about the data. They don't talk about the model. And I think it's because the data is easy to understand and the model is not. So, but anyway, anytime a model is working, it has to work with data. And the cleaner you can have your data, the more organized it is, and the more available you make it, the better the model is going to work. And sometimes you need to move from model to model. Like when we build systems for organizations, all of our systems, like with Generate and Interplay, they operate with many different models. You can get, the Anthropic models, the DeepSeek models, the Meta models, the Mistral models out of France, many, many different models, and each one will behave differently, even using the same data. But no matter what, I think you want to get your data into places that are accessible through these AI tools. But remember, your data, you also want to make sure the private data stays private. So don't ever expose private data to a public language model. And a public one would be considered ChatGPT, Anthropic's, a lot of what Anthropic does, with Claude and that. So you got to make sure it remains private. We were working with a company in Mexico City that actually exposed all the salary data in their company to a public model, and it leaked, like the company saw it. So be very, very, very careful with your data before exposing it to a language model. Then also data needs to be labeled well, so that the language models can understand what those are. And if it's an image, that means labeling it too properly. The language models are pretty good at figuring things out, but the better models are language, or the better data is labeled, the better the language models will respond. And then just use tools that make it easy to access the data. That's a lot of what we work on, is an ability, making it easy to access data within organizations, because usually you'll find that data lives in a lot of different places, and that's another thing you can do, is an audit on where all your data lives. So,
and the fact that you pay for an AI does not mean it's private. That's important to mention. Even if you pay for a public LLM, it doesn't make it private. So be careful with that.
100%.
Indeed. There are some people in the chat that also in the Q&A box. I think it's connected to this, because also of course to interact with LLMs, the way we interact is through prompts. So from your experience, is there any resources, any tools, or anything that you can share with the audience about how to prompt adequately, or how to learn how to prompt really good on those LLMs? Maybe from your experience, Lucia, we start first.
Yes. Well, prompting is actually asking questions to the AI. So if you want very precise answers, make good questions. And give context. Give context in the sense of asking the output you expect from AI. If you want general answers, or if you want the AI to behave like a professional in a certain topic, if you want to look for sources or not, if you want to make up information or not. So how to prompt, go to YouTube first, I would say. How to prompt, you'll find very interesting videos about how to do it, because now that we are in 2025, people have tried all sorts of prompting. So, take some time to dig into this, to make very good questions to AI. But would be to go in detail as much as possible based on the answer you would like to expect, and ask AI to behave like a professional, to get a checked information, and in order to get answers that would not need to be double checked then, to see if AI is making up the information or not. But I do recommend finding articles on this, on how to prompt, because we have tons today, and you'll make very good questions if you do so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. She's right. You can go to YouTube and find a lot of great resources on how to do it well, but it is worth spending a little bit of time, like learning how to ask the questions right. I can spend 5 minutes creating a prompt,
Yes.
before I go. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
because it's this idea that if you just ask something simple to the AI, you will get the solution. It's not the microwave, as I was saying before, not something you ask for a simple question, you will get a beautiful answer. It takes time to make the prompt and to go back and forth, because maybe you will have a first output and you're not very convinced. So you need to go a bit deeper. It does take time to use AI in a smart way.
That is so true. Yeah, going back and forth. I will go back and forth for hours and hours of, and I read everything it says. Never take what it says as being truth. make sure you read it. That's why we always keep the human in the loop. On the example where we have the LLM talking with emojis, that's why we always send what we think is the proper response to a human to take a look at it before they post it out, to the public. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I will take the concept of human in the loop to ask you both the following question, which is also related to a question on the chat, and is, how do you balance automation with human connection or with a human touch in your business? There was a person also asking, are there any use cases where a human can be substituted completely from any task or job? Maybe John, let's start with you.
We've built a few things that are really interesting. If you classify an AI in two places, one would be an agent. Let's say an agent. These are multi-step AI tools that do eliminate work or reduce work. Some of the agents are there just to improve what's already being done. So let's say copywriting. That's an improvement on something that already is happening. But or writing an RFP, or or analyzing requests for prices. And I'll tell you about those in just one second. But there's another type of agent that does stuff that was humanly impossible before. And we built one of these for hospitals because in America, the insurance companies have a history of not paying bills. Like if you make one mistake on your request to get an insurance company to pay a hospital, they won't pay the bill. And these are very complicated submissions. So the hospitals historically haven't been able to figure out like how to resubmit bills. And in America, the hospital market, where insurance claims are repaid, is about a $1.3 trillion business. But about 130 billion of that is never paid because of mistakes in the paperwork and stuff like that. So we built an agent that can actually find those mistakes. And in one hospital, it found just recently $17.4 million worth of mistakes that the humans couldn't find. And that could all get resubmitted to the insurance company. So in that case, it's not replacing people. It's doing work that couldn't even be done before. And it's actually helping save jobs and, keep these hospitals solvent. But in the case of the RFPs, this is interesting because we built an RFP writer for a big tech company. And for them to write a request or respond to a request for price, typically this big tech company would take about 30 hours of work to get it done. And that's because they have to go to the CFO, they've got to, in the finance department, the accountants, they've got to go to the product people, they've got to go to the back and forth with maybe the marketing people, but various people within the company before they finish the RFP. So the agent that we wrote actually gets the first draft done in 15 minutes now. So that 30 hours of work goes down to 15 minutes. And what it replaces is a lot of the monotony of writing one of those requests. And then the person that's writing the request can spend like 2, 3, 4 hours making sure it's done well. But that has to be done. And so those are cases, that's a case where the AI is just doing what they do every day anyway, but it's making it a lot more efficient process than was done in the past. And that salesperson who's doing the RFP can spend a lot more time interacting in a human way with that customer.
Lucia, what about you? Your experience?
Yes, AI is not here to replace humans or to replace communication, because actually with the automation you can make with AI, it leaves room for the company owners or even for some employees or the staff to focus on human connections. It will leave you time to visit a client if you want. So AI allows you to automate those daily tasks that take long or that are very repetitive. So it's a benefit. I mean, and yes, it may help or it may replace the way some tasks were done, as John was saying. I mean, you don't need to spend 30 hours now a day, or you don't need to hire a copywriter to write from scratch, but maybe you need a copywriter to review what the AI did. So this is just about, as it has happened all along history, to adapt to changes and to see now that jobs need to be done in a different way. But AI is a benefit, and we have to see it as such. I mean, we have to understand that AI is here to improve the workload and to save time, actually, to help us a lot. So don't be afraid. I mean, we're not going to be replaced by AI.
Thank you both. And for everyone, a reminder that the recordings and the presentations will be available on a dedicated link on the YLAI website. So please tune in to the website, which is pasted on the chat if you want to check the recording and the presentation that John shared at the beginning. I have a final question for you both, but I would also like to bring in questions, additional questions from the audience. So this is the time to put your questions on the chat or on the Q&A box to go with them. My final one is basically, from your experience, what AI trends should as small businesses and entrepreneurs watch over the next 1 to 2 years? Like, what are those next trends that everybody needs to keep an eye on? John?
There we go. Sorry. The first one I think is that the AI is going to get a lot smarter. It's that it's doubling its smarts in certain areas every 3 months at this point. Worst case, it's like every 7 months. So I don't know when it'll all plateau, but it's only going to get better. Another one is that, and I think Lucia and I have both talked about this, private AI is going to become really important. Like, people are going to get these agents. I don't know if you know this, but these agents have a memory that's way different than typical IT solutions we've seen in the past. They have what's called context. They can remember things just like humans. I have in my neighborhood, I have owls, and I'm interested in them a little bit. I like watching them. And one day I asked ChatGPT about the owls in my neighborhood. And it said at the end, it told me about 3 owls. One of them's like a gray owl or a horned owl. And it said, next time you're walking your 3 dogs, Charlie, Sammy, and Rosie, in your neighborhood, look at the trees. And I thought, what in the world? How did it know about my dogs? And I guess I had mentioned my dogs, a couple months ago to ChatGPT. So just know that it remembers everything about you. Don't put something in there if you don't want it remembered. And this stuff doesn't really it goes into a database, but it's also stored in these neural networks that are different than old-fashioned types of databases. And this is one reason private AI is going to be really, really important. Another AI is this edge AI, where the AI doesn't operate on these massive GPU farms in the cloud, in data centers. It actually operates on your private devices, like my Ring right here, my Aura Ring, or these small handheld computers that we talked about earlier in my presentation. There'll be a lot more attention paid to inference too. That means when that's AI in production, most of what we read about today is AI in training. That's what ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and all these companies are doing all the time. They're trying to train better and better and better models. But inference is where you and I will get the most benefit from it. And then last one I'll talk about is agents. We're going to see a lot more of this agentic work where there are swarms of agents that complete multiple tasks and redo it again and again and again, and then agents that work together. And so those are called swarms of agents. But we'll see more and more of that come into the workforce. And what that'll ultimately end up doing is create a situation where companies end up acting more like organisms than hierarchies. In other words, they're living organisms with memories that live in these agents themselves. And so I don't know if you ever heard the word single point of failure. Small companies are always scared of a person leaving a job because you lose that the memory that human has on how to do a task. But in the future, a lot of that memory will be held in these agents. And so that'll make for a different company. Lucia?
Yes, actually, it is being said now that the CEOs of the future will not only manage organizational structure, the typical organizational structure with people, but people and agents. So it will be a hybrid ecosystem within companies. Well, it's happening already, but we'll see how CEOs really have to deal with this. I will repeat about the responsible and ethical use on AI. I think that's not only a trend, but a need for everyone. AI in customer experience will also keep on growing, and we will see it even in small businesses, because now we understand more about it and everyone can have a chatbot in their companies. So I think we'll see a lot more on that regard. Generative AI as well. I mean, we'll keep using it for creating content, for copywriting, for social media. We're having some very great outputs as regards videos. These videos of ourselves, but that are not really ourselves. So that will continue moving on. And I've seen some that are truly amazing. Then we need to have continuous learning. I mean, never stop. John said it. I mean, the changes are now seen within 3 months. It's not about waiting for years. So we need to learn a lot and to read a lot, and take into account that your university degree is now old. I mean, that's not enough. It's not even enough being a professional in some specific industry. You need to be ahead of what's happening. And then an area that I really enjoy and I've worked a lot is HR. I mean, the HR area is growing a lot with AI, and we're seeing how it is being integrated into recruiting processes, into reading CVs. And I suppose we've all seen this great amount of videos on how to prepare your resume with AI, because big companies, at least the biggest ones, are not reading every resume, or not one at a time. So they are scanning them against some AI. So it's important to know how to prepare them to be selected for the biggest companies. So we've got a lot of trends I see for the future.
Thank you both. John, this question is for you. How can they have access to Agent One, to the platform, after the presentation, after the event?
After this event, the presentation that I did will be emailed, I think, to everybody.
Yeah.
And then also there's a little kind of like a brochure that describes Agent One, and there's a link on there and a QR code. You could use either one to access that, and then it'll take you to a place where you can download Agent One. You can then hook it into Visual Studio and work the way you always work.
Thank you.
And if you need anything else, you can link to me on LinkedIn and ask me questions there, and I can get stuff too.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, and there's some comments about, like, is there going to be a second part of this talk where we can actually implement AI into a process that all entrepreneurs struggle with, like administration, customer service, etc. So an idea that I leave out in the floor, maybe for a future opportunity. So as John just said, the presentation and the recording will be available for all of you at the end of this event, because right now we're almost at time. And I want to thank you, John and Lucia, for sharing your insights, and thank you all for joining and engaging. If today sparked ideas for your business, keep exploring and testing and doing small pilots. And for more tools and resources, please visit the YLAI site and the YLAI network on social media for updates on sessions 2 and 3. Second session is going to be on September 10th on overcoming funding challenges. So also an interesting one for you to attend. And with that, again, thank you, John. Thank you, Lucia. It was really nice to hear from you both, and I hope everybody has enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Magnus, too, for helping me.